All right, so in the last video, we saw that the Crimean War killed the continent of Europe, which kills the principle of intervention, which helps pave the way for German unification, which upsets the balance of power. Now we're going to look at Italian unification. Now, German and Italian unification, they happen at roughly the same time. In fact, one influences the other, right? So all of this is connected. So, in the Italian peninsula, remember, there's no country called Italy yet. You had a series of Italian kingdoms, many of which were controlled by Austria. But one of the independent kingdoms was Piedmont, right? And its king was Victor Emmanuel II. And many Italians throughout the peninsula turned to Piedmont as a guiding force in Italian unification. Now, in Germany, Kaiser William I, right, had Otto von Bismarck. In Italy, Victor Emmanuel has a man named Cavour. And he strengthens the Piedmontese army, then makes an alliance with France to fight against Austria. Because remember, there's no principle of intervention anymore. And Piedmont is able to get Lombardy. But then what happens after that is nationalists in the Italian kingdoms of Parma, Modena, and Tuscany, they overthrow their governments and then hand themselves over to Piedmont to get closer to the goal of Italian unification. And then what happens is there's this Italian nationalist. He was super famous, guy named Garibaldi. He fought in the 1848 revolutions that eventually failed. He fought liberalist revolutions in South America. The dude was a world famous kind of liberal nationalist hero, and he forms this volunteer army called the Red Shirts. And they overthrow the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies in southern Italy. They also overthrow the government of Naples, and then they hand their territory, Garibaldi and his red shirts hand their territory that they conquered over to Piedmont as well, because they are nationalists. Garibaldi is not a huge fan of monarchs. He's a liberal, but he sees Piedmont as the best chance for Italian unification. So at this point, Piedmont, it has Lombardy, it has Parma, it has Modena, it has the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, and it has Naples, right? So after it gets all that, Italy, the brand new country of Italy, is created with Victor Emmanuel as its king. Now there are still pieces of the peninsula, Italian peninsula, that it still needs, which it will get when Prussia fights Austria, if you remember that. Italy takes advantage of that and joins with Prussia to attack Austria, and that's how they get Venetia. And then, if you remember how Prussia fights France in the Franco-Prussian War, well, France defended the territory of the Pope, the Papal States. Well, when France has to fight Prussia, France cannot defend the Papal States anymore because of the Franco-Prussian War. Italy takes advantage of that and gets its last piece, the Papal States. So because of German unification, Italian unification works. It happens because Prussia fighting Austria, because of Prussia fighting France, the Italians are able to take advantage of this to gain territory. Now, speaking of France, you look at what's going on in France. Remember, last time we left France, it had become a republic again, and elected as its president Louis Napoleon, the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. But eventually, what happens? They have a plebiscite, a common vote, a vote in which all citizens of France, adult citizens, get to vote, and they vote to make Louis Napoleon Emperor Napoleon III. Right? They've come back to the empire, right? And Napoleon III was always looking for opportunities to earn glory like his uncle did. That's one reason why France helps Piedmont fight against Austria, right? It was a way to get military glory. And at first, everything's great. He works really hard to restore French glory. He beautifies Paris, for instance. He gained some territory when he helped Piedmont fight against the Austrians. But he also limited civil liberties like freedom of speech and press, and that made a lot of people uncomfortable. But as long as everything was going okay, they were willing to let some of that slide. But When the Franco-Prussian War happens, that was a disaster. The Prussians annihilate the French army. It is a huge embarrassment. The war is over very quickly. At one point, the Prussians actually capture Louis Napoleon during the war and hold him hostage. That's embarrassing. The ceremony that created Germany was held in the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. So Germany essentially created itself in France, in a landmark of France. So after the Franco-Prussian War, the French people rebel and get rid of Louis Napoleon. They end the empire and turn France back into a republic once again, hoping that this time it will work.